Good morning, everyone, and good morning, members of the jury. Just to give you a scheduling update, we are actually ahead of what we planned the schedule to be as far as the evidence coming in. For that and for other reasons that are not relevant, we are going to take tomorrow afternoon off. There are other things that have to be done without the necessity of bringing our jury in. So we're going to try and recess tomorrow about 12:30. We won't be ordering lunches because we expect you to be out of the building by then. So just so you can have a little idea where we're going tomorrow. With that, we'll proceed. Mr. Frank.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Courtney Ross to the stand.
Yeah, good morning. I'm good. Come right up here, and if you could just stand behind the chair to start with. Right.
Absolutely.
And raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Now, before we begin, well, you anticipated my first request, which is to keep your mask off. It just that it'll be easier to hear you. If you feel a need that you got to put it back on, feel free. But
Thank you.
the important thing is that we be able to hear you, and so what we're going to do is start to make sure we can hear you. We're going to have you state your full name, spell each of your names.
Okay. My name is Courtney, Courtney, Batya, Batya, Ross, Ross.
Thank you. Mr. Frank.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Ross, can you just tell the jurors, not your address, but generally where you live?
Yes, I live in Northeast Minneapolis.
How long have you been in the Northeast Minneapolis area?
My entire life. I was born and raised.
And can you tell the jurors how old you are?
I'm 45 years old.
Seems like a strange question, but there is a reason for it.
It's okay.
So. And do you have any children?
I have 2 boys.
Okay. And Ms. Ross, did you know George Floyd?
Yes.
When did you meet George Floyd?
I met Floyd in August of 2017.
And you referred to him as Floyd?
All the time.
That's how you just referred to him all the time?
Yes.
And, in court, we prefer to use Mr. Floyd. So as much as you can, do that, but I understand Floyd is just how you knew him, right?
Sure.
All right. And so when was it that you first met Mr. Floyd?
May I tell the story?
Sure.
Okay. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. Excuse me.
And Ms. Ross, just so you know, if you feel like you need to just take a moment to collect yourself, feel free. We're in no rush here.
Thank
right?
you.
Yep.
In August of 2017, I had gotten off work one night. I worked at a coffee shop for 22 years now, part-time. And I was tired and I just cleaned up and closed up the shop, and I went to go visit my son's father, who was staying at Harbor Lights, the Salvation Army shelter. He had had some difficulties and was staying there. I entered Harbor Lights, and when you visit there, you have to ask for a person to come down if you're visiting them. And so I had the receptionist call him down, but he didn't seem to be coming down, so I waited in the lobby. And I wanted to talk to him about our son's birthday. Excuse me. I was pretty upset, and I started kind of fussing in the corner of the lobby. And at one point, Floyd came up to me. And Floyd has this great, deep Southern voice, raspy. He's like, "Sis, you okay, sis?" And I wasn't okay. I said, "No, I'm just waiting for my son's father." He said, "Well, can I pray with you?" I was so tired. We had been through so much, my sons and I. And this kind person just to come up to me and say, "Can I pray with you?" When I felt alone in this lobby. It was so sweet. And at the time, I had lost a lot of faith in God.
Ms. Ross, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just going to want to maybe help with a few questions, okay?
Sure.
At that point, did you know what Mr. Floyd was doing there at the Salvation Army?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. He worked there as a security guard.
Okay. And so he came up to you and tried to comfort you?
Yes.
Okay. And was that the beginning of your relationship?
Well, not that part. That was just Floyd. Afterwards, he had asked me who my son's father was, and I said, you know, we're co-parent and we're not in a relationship. And that's when I like to say his voice dropped like 2 levels, even though it was deep already. And he asked me if he could get my number, and we had our first kiss in the lobby. And that's when our relationship started.
And after that, how close did you become?
We were very close.
And so I'm not sure you told us when this was. Do you recall roughly, not the date, but the year at least?
In August of 2017.
Okay. And up until his death, did you continue to be in a relationship with him?
Yes.
Can you describe, how often you saw each other during those 3 years?
Just about every day we saw each other, as much as we possibly could.
Were there times when you weren't as close as other times?
We had, sometimes just like all couples, we argued sometimes and, might have taken a break, but.
Like most couples.
Like most couples, I assume.
Did you learn, whether he was new to Minneapolis?
Oh yeah, on our first date, like most people do, we went over like our histories, and he told me he was from Houston.
And what kinds of things did the two of you do together when you get together and do things?
Floyd was new to the city, so everything was kind of new to him. Everywhere we went was new to him. He made it seem like, I was new to my own city. So we like to go to, he lived right by Lake Bade-Makaska. We like to go down there a lot and, enjoy the outdoors. We like to go to the sculpture garden and just, walk around. We went out to eat a lot.
Why?
Because Floyd loved to eat a lot. He's a big man, and it took a lot of energy to keep him going. And he loved food, and so did I. It was fun. It was an adventure always with him.
Did you know where he was working, prior to his death? Had he been working someplace?
Yes, he was working at Conga.
What is
Latin Bistro?
Okay. What is that?
Conga is a restaurant, but also a nightclub in the evening.
What did he do there?
He was a security guard. He was head of security there.
And did he at some point lose that job?
Only because of COVID. I mean, it shut down because of COVID.
And you had met at Salvation Army. Did you, learn eventually that he worked there?
Yes, I knew that evening that he worked at the Salvation Army.
And he was a security guard there?
Yes.
Right. And at some point that job ended, correct?
Yes. I think that maybe a year or so after I met him.
And in the time period leading up to his death in May of last year, let's talk about January to May when he passed. How often were the two of you seeing each other?
Of 2020?
Yes.
At the beginning of the year, we had not seen each other, kind of separated for a little while, but from March until May, we spent every day together.
And we have a photograph of Mr. Floyd. I believe we showed that to you in a prior meeting with you, correct?
Yes.
And you recognize that as him?
Yes.
Right. And you're going to read off for Exhibit 247?
247 is received.
Look that up. So I'm showing you Exhibit 247.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. See, if you touch the screen, it's going to write on there, so sorry. You familiar with this photograph?
Yes. Yes.
What kind of photograph is this?
I would call it a dad selfie.
And why would you call it that?
I'm just joking, but a lot of dads sometimes don't have the best angle. When they take selfies, it's kind of lower and don't take the time to maybe do the certain angles that everybody else does.
And so this is you believe, a selfie that he took?
Yes.
All right.
I believe it was outside of the Salvation Army.
Do you recall about roughly when this was taken?
From the sweater he was wearing, I think it was the fall of 2017.
Did Mr. Floyd have any children?
Yes.
How many children did he have?
2 girls.
And did he try to be a part of their lives as much as he could?
Yes, he loved his girls. It was hard being in Minnesota, long distance, but.
So his daughters were not in Minnesota? Is that, no?
No.
Just want to make sure that your voice is loud enough for everybody to hear. At some point, when you knew Mr. Floyd, did you learn of his mother's death?
Yes.
Did you recall when that was?
It was in May 2018.
And did you see Well, describe, if you would, for the jury, what you saw his reaction to his mother's death.
Pardon me. Floyd is Floyd's what I would call a mama's boy. I could tell from the minute I met him. And when he came back from Houston, he seemed kind of like a shell of himself. Like he was broken. He seemed so sad. He didn't have the same kind of bounce that he had. He was devastated. He loved his mom so much, and I knew that. He talked about her all the time. I knew how he felt. It's so hard to lose a parent that you love like that.
Ms. Ross, thank you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'll see if I can ask some questions to help a little, okay? So he struggled with grief over his mother's death?
Excuse me, yes.
And going to change topics a bit, okay?
Okay,
You need a minute, are you okay?
I'm okay. I can do it.
You met Mr. Floyd at Salvation Army
Yes,
and then proceeded to maintain a relationship with him.
yes,
And I have to ask you if drug use was a part of that relationship.
yes.
And what kind of drug use was a part of that relationship?
Floyd and I both suffered with an opioid addiction.
And do you know how, like for your own self,
Yeah.
how you came to be involved, with what kind of drugs and how you became
The use of
involved?
opioids, yes. Both Floyd and I, our story, it's a classic story of how many people get addicted to opioids. We both suffered from chronic pain. Mine was in my neck and his was in his back. We both had prescriptions, but after prescriptions that were filled and we got addicted and tried really hard to break that addiction many times.
And were you each aware of each other's struggles with opioids?
Yes, eventually in our relationship we shared that.
And did you sort of work together on that issue?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And over how long of a period did this struggle go on for you, for both of you?
Addiction, in my opinion, is a lifelong struggle. So it's something that we dealt with every day. It's not something that just kind of comes and goes. It's something I'll deal with forever.
And were there periods of time when you were not using opioids?
Absolutely.
And same question with regard to Mr. Floyd.
Yes, absolutely.
And were there times when you knew that he was using opioids more than by prescription?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And when you weren't using, prescription opioids, where did you get them?
Off the street, on the black market.
And you knew that he was doing that as well.
Yes.
And turning your attention to, well, let me ask this. You were in a relationship for nearly 3 years.
Yes.
And did this use of opioids beyond even prescriptions sort of continue throughout that 3-year period for Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
And it's something that you saw yourself and were aware of.
Yes.
And I have to ask the same question of you. Did you struggle using during that entire period?
Yes.
And were there times when you would use together?
Yes.
And for what you saw Mr. Floyd using, what form of opioids did he typically use?
Oxycontin or oxycodone, and any kind of oxy.
And how did he get that? How did he use it?
Swallow them.
And so in pill form?
Yes. Sorry.
That's right. Not the easiest question to ask, for you. So I'm sorry.
It's
If
okay.
you ever don't understand my question, feel free to ask
Okay.
or let me know, okay? And so there were times when you would obtain non-prescription opiate pills together?
Yes, they would be other people's prescriptions.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
They would be other people's prescriptions.
And were there some times, well, why would you get them through other people's prescriptions? What do you mean?
To make sure they were safe.
And were there times then that you had to get pills other than, from what you knew were somebody else's prescriptions?
Yes.
And were there times when you thought that maybe Mr. Floyd wasn't using, or was using, but not with you, not in your presence?
Yes. There was a time.
And were there times when you were using together, well, I guess that's a poorly worded question already. Let me just ask it this way. Did you use the same amounts when you used?
Yes.
And taking your attention to March of 2020, and there was a time in March when you knew he was back to using pills, is that right?
I thought his behavior had changed.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I think when you know someone who suffers with any type of addiction, you can start to kind of see changes when they're using again. And there's just slight behavioral changes that I noticed in him, and it just made me suspect.
And in March of 2020, did you also kind of fall back into using
Yes,
some?
I did.
So you, and were you two using together back in March, or you just suspected his use?
In March, yes, we did use together.
And was there a period then after March where you thought the two of you had both been able to quit for a while?
Yes, a long period.
And then kind of going forward to May of 2020, was there a time when you thought he might be using again?
Yes.
And so in May, when you thought that, what led you to think that?
It was the same type of thing, just behavior changes in Floyd.
And did you also kind of fall back to using opioids in May of 2020?
One time, yes.
And he was aware of that?
Yes.
And when he well, let me ask you this, I guess. In May of 2020, did you know where he was living? Just the general area.
Yes, yes.
Did he have his own place where he stayed?
Yes, he lived in a place in St. Louis Park,
Did he have,
side by side.
did he have roommates there?
Yes, 2.
Did the two of you ever live together?
No, we stayed at each other's places, but we didn't live together.
So in May of 2020, do you recall the last time you spoke with him?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was in relation to his death?
It was the day before he died.
And how did you talk to him? Like
By phone.
Okay. And did you know what he was going to be doing that night or where he was going to be staying?
That night I knew he said he was going to be staying at Sylvia's.
Did you know who Sylvia was?
Yes, she's a friend of ours.
And so as far as you knew, he was going to be staying at a friend's house, Sylvia's.
Yes.
And do you recall him saying what the plan was for why they were going to Sylvia's?
Well, Floyd had, made his Minneapolis family here too, and a lot of the people that he was friends with were from other states, and almost everybody had lost their job within that time, and he was feeling kind of lonely and just wanted to hang out with his friends, and so a lot of people that worked at the Salvation Army with him and other people that just stayed there, and they were, just kind of being a family.
And was Sylvia, did she work at the Salvation Army too?
Yes.
So he knew her from there?
Yes.
So that was the last time you talked to him, is the Sunday before his death?
Yes.
You told the jurors earlier that sort of the classic story leading to an opioid addiction, having injuries and prescriptions.
Yes.
Had Mr. Floyd been an active person physically?
Yes. He's very active.
Okay. And what do you mean by that? What types of things did you see him doing?
Well, Floyd liked to work out every day. He lifted weights that are far beyond anything I could lift every single day. He did sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, just within his house. If he went out and about, he would go running, biking. He always played sports. He loved playing sports with like neighborhood kids or anybody really that would pick up any type of ball or racket. He would play instantly. So he was always involved in that. He would do anything physical. We went on paddle boating. We'll take walks. But he was the type of person which is to run to the store.
When you were with him, whether either he had been exercising or just hanging out, did you ever complain of shortness of breath or having difficulty breathing?
No.
And did he have did he have sports injuries that he complained of?
Yes.
You mentioned earlier, what, his neck?
His neck, and it down like from his neck to shoulder blade and down to his lower back. There was 3 main kind of areas.
And despite that, he remained physically active. He would do these activities.
Oh, yes.
And when he did those things, it led to his prescriptions, those injuries that led to his prescriptions for opiates.
The
injuries that he had to his neck.
Oh, yes.
And I think I forgot to ask you, was there a time in 2020 when the two of you took a test for COVID?
Yes.
And did you learn the results? Did he tell you the results of his COVID test?
Yes.
What did he
His
say?
were positive, mine were negative.
And do you recall when that was?
I believe it was late March.
And so because of that, did he quarantine for a while?
Yes, he was already quarantining, but his roommates also had COVID.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. That's the only questions I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Ross.
Good morning, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear about your struggles with opioid addiction.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with the jury. I have some follow-up questions about your experiences with Mr. Floyd. Before I get into that, I want to just go through a few things with you. You have been interviewed by law enforcement and prosecutors several times in connection with this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
The first interview that you provided was in May. It was on May 31st of 2020 with an agent from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension named Nathan Adams, as well as an FBI agent named Christopher Langert, correct?
Yes.
And you have you had an opportunity to review a transcript of that interview, that first interview?
Yes.
All right. You were also, then you had a meeting on December 14th with the prosecution team in preparation for this case, right?
December 14th.
December 14th. Would
It
you
could
dispute
be.
me if I told you that?
I believe you.
Okay. Then you also had an interview back in June of 2020 with just the FBI agents and some prosecutors from the federal government, right?
Yes.
And then you met again with prosecutors on February 21st of this year, or 25th, excuse me, of this year.
That sounds right.
And then finally on March 31st, which I believe was just yesterday, right?
Yes.
And you understand, again, that at least the meetings with law enforcement, they were recorded, transcribed, and you've had opportunities to review both of those transcripts.
Yes.
And in fact, I think yesterday when you met with prosecutors, you went through the FBI transcript from that meeting back in June.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I know that you and Mr. Floyd both struggled with opioid addiction, and I just need to ask some kind of follow-up questions on that and time frames, all right? So when you first met Mr. Floyd, you would agree that throughout the course of your relationship, you and Mr. Floyd both had a struggle with opioid addiction.
Yes.
And there would be periods of time where you would both be using, and there would be periods of time where neither one of you would be using, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And there would be periods of time where one or the other may be using, right? Like you may have been
Yes.
using and he wasn't, or vice versa.
Yes.
All right. And you knew at some point Mr. Floyd had gone through some treatment programs, right?
Yes.
And I kind of want to just zero in on the time frame from January of 2020 until his death in May. Would that be okay?
Yes.
And I know that this is difficult, and I'm sorry we have to go through this, but, so I want to kind of work backwards in a sense,
Okay.
in terms of your statements.
Okay.
Well, let me strike that. You testified that there were periods of time where you would get a prescription for, or Mr. Floyd would get a prescription for opiates legally, meaning through a doctor, right?
Yes.
And you'd go to a doctor, you would get a prescription, and you would use those pills, right?
Yes.
And then there were other times where you would buy other people's prescriptions from them, right?
Yes.
And then there were times when those weren't available, and so you would have to buy different types of pills, right? Unknown sources, so to speak.
Yes.
And are you familiar with Maurice Hall?
Yes.
And was Maurice Hall the person that you and Mr. Floyd bought controlled substances from?
We had.
I'm going to show you a photograph. And just to you, you'll be the only one who can see it at this time. It's been previously marked as Defense Exhibit 1006.
Okay.
Can you see that photograph, ma'am?
No.
Just to her.
No.
Oh, sorry, I gotta hit this. Can you see that photograph, ma'am?
Yes.
Is that the person you know to be Maurice Hall?
Yes.
And can you just generally describe what he's wearing?
Red hat, red pants, and a black and white shirt.
And that is up in the upper right-hand corner. Would you agree that that has the date of May 25th, 2020?
Yes.
And that's the person that both you and Mr. Floyd had previously purchased controlled substances from?
Yes.
Now, in the January and February timeframe, were you and Mr. Floyd clean and free from using opioids?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. In the January and February of 2020 timeframe, did you and Mr. Floyd, were you clean and sober? At that
January and February?
Yes.
We weren't really talking to each other, so I wasn't around him.
Okay, so you kind of were on the break at that point, right? And then you reconnected sometime in March, right?
Yes.
And was there an incident in March that required Mr. Floyd to be hospitalized?
Yes.
And that was, can you describe for the jury what that incident was?
Which date are you speaking
In
of?
March, when he was hospitalized?
We went to the hospital a couple times in March.
Okay. He was hospitalized for a more extended period of time in March, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the incident I'm talking
Okay.
about. Okay. I understand he went once because he had hurt his hand, like cut his hand on glass or something. And that was a shorter hospital stay?
Yes.
But then there was an extended hospital stay
Yes.
in March. Can you describe for the jury what led up to that hospital stay?
Yes. Floyd, I went to go pick Floyd up from his house that night. I thought I was taking him to work. He wasn't feeling good. His stomach really hurt. He was doubled over in pain. Just wasn't feeling well, and he said he had to go to the hospital. So I took him straight to the hospital. We went to the ER, and they were checking him out in the ER, and it was getting late, and I had to get home to my son, so I left that Friday night.
Did you later learn that that was due to an overdose?
Object,
Yes.
Your Honor, lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled.
You spent several days with him at the hospital, correct?
Yes.
And did you learn what caused that overdose?
No.
at that time frame, did you learn that Mr. Floyd was taking anything other than opioids?
No,
You did not know that he had taken heroin at that time?
no.
Now, then in March of 2020, you got some pills, right? You remember describing that?
Yes.
And can you describe what those pills were like?
How, like physically?
Physically.
Well, they look different to me than a normal pill. They seem like they were thicker.
Were they uniform in their size?
They weren't.
Did they have markings on them?
Yes, they did.
And you and Mr. Floyd both had those pills?
Yes,
And did you consume some of those pills?
I did.
Did they have the same effect on you as they did as your other types of opioids you had taken in the past?
No.
What was the effect this time? And what was different?
Usually, a opioid to me is like it's a pain reliever. It's something that is, kind of relaxing, takes your pain away. The pill, that time, it seemed like it was a really strong stimulant. I couldn't sleep all night. I felt very jittery.
You felt what?
Very jittery.
Okay. And so these were pills that were not bought from someone who you knew to have a valid prescription for Percocets.
No.
Were these pills purchased from Mr. Hall?
No.
So were these pills before or after Mr. Floyd was hospitalized for his overdose?
I don't remember.
But you described when you picked him up that night, so you must have reconnected because you had a little bit of a break,
Yes.
right? Reconnected. When you picked him up that night, he was just in incredible pain, doubled over, right?
Yes.
His stomach hurt very bad.
Yes.
Now, I want to focus our attention on your statement that you gave to the FBI. And again, you've had an opportunity to review that transcript in its entirety, right?
Yes.
And you've had an opportunity to answer questions that the prosecution had of you regarding that statement as late as of yesterday, right? You and I have never met before, right?
Not that I believe.
And so I've not had an opportunity yet to ask you about some of the information in your statement.
No.
When you met with the FBI, you informed FBI agents that
Going to object to improper form of cross-examination.
Sidebar. We'll wait for him
Thank
to
you.
formulate the question.
Thank you.
Let me back up a little bit. Did you know Mr. Floyd to spend a lot of time with Mr. Maurice Hall?
I wouldn't say a lot of time, but he spent time with him, yes.
Right. And would you agree that that was kind of from time to time that he would spend time with him?
Yes.
And you didn't like that, did you?
Excuse me, I didn't like Maurice very much, no.
Would Mr. Floyd be honest with you when he told you that when he was with him?
I'm going to object to Your Honor's characterization.
False respectfully.
That is sustained. You don't have to answer that one.
Yeah.
You knew Mr. Floyd would purchase narcotics from Mr. Reese or Maurice Hall?
I don't know that. I speculated that.
Do you recall the FBI agents asking you, did Mr. Floyd purchase controlled substances from Mr. Maurice Hall?
Yes.
And do you recall saying yes?
I did say yes, but I did not see it with
I'm
my
gonna
own
object at
eyes.
this point.
All along the instance.
Okay. Now, the pills that were purchased in March that you described,
Yeah.
did you know that those were purchased from Mr. Hall?
What,
The pills that you described in March of 2020?
no, I didn't know.
But those are the pills that kept you up, you said all night, right?
Yes.
Did those pills continue to be around from March through May?
I don't know.
Do you recall the FBI asking whether you were getting those same pills from the same source from March to May?
I don't recall that question.
Would it refresh your recollection to review a transcript?
Yes.
Never.
I'm sorry.
Counsel would be?
Oh, sorry. Bates 45212, page 12. I'm just going to read this so you can hear it down in your head.
From the beginning?
No, just from about here down.
Oh, okay. Honestly, I was in such shock then. I don't even know what I mean by some of the things I said.
There was no question. I'm going to ask that that be stricken.
Last line, please.
We'll wait for that question.
Did ask a question about that
Well,
statement before approaching.
Counsel, sidebar.
So you've now had an opportunity to review that portion of the transcript, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that the FBI agents asked you from March to May if you continued to purchase those pills from the same source? Did they ask you that question?
They
Yes.
did.
And you responded, once in a while when we were desperate. Agreed?
That's what it says, yes. I don't recall saying
I'm going
that.
to object as non-responsive.
Okay.
Overruled, no, I don't.
You don't remember that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Overruled. The answer will stand.
And Mr. Floyd's overdose, that was at the beginning of March of 2020. He was hospitalized March 6th, agreed,
Yes.
of 2020. And he was in the hospital for 10 or 11 days, something like that,
No, 5.
5 days. And when you took him to the hospital, did you notice foam coming from his mouth?
I noticed like some kind of, like, foam building in the corners of his mouth, kind of
Like
dry.
a dry white substance?
Mhm. Yes. Sorry.
Now, pardon?
No problem, we'll just walk through.
All right. Now, you were asked a couple of questions in terms of whether that overdose was caused by heroin. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And you said you didn't know.
I didn't.
Do you remember telling the FBI that the overdose was from heroin?
I was speculating.
Do you recall telling the FBI where or whom the source of that heroin was?
Once again, yes, I do remember that, but I was speculating.
And was that Mr. Hall?
No.
Was that Shawanda Hill?
Yes.
Did you know Mr. Floyd to purchase drugs from Miss Hill as well?
No.
Do you recall being asked whether he purchased drugs from Miss Hill previously?
I don't remember that, no.
May I approach the witness to, would it refresh your recollection to review a copy of your transcript?
Yes.
May I approach?
So this is to refresh your memory, there won't be a question before you at this time? So he'll go back and he'll ask a question once he returns.
Where does it say that he was buying drugs from her? That doesn't say buying.
I'm sorry?
It says getting drugs from her.
I'm gonna grab, I need to grab one previous page. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's not easy to get another.
Page, this again is to refresh your memory, so there's not a question before you that you need to answer yet.
None of that says he was buying drugs from her.
Well, let's start with does that refresh?
Yeah, I haven't got it. I'll go back to Floyd. Ms. Ross, does that refresh your recollection?
Yes, but none of that said he was buying drugs from her.
You were asked, do you know who the woman was that he would have gotten that from? And your response was Shawanda Hill,
Yes.
right?
I was speculating at the time. I did not know that.
Understood. And you were asked, you said he liked getting drugs from her, and you said, mm-hmm, correct? That's what you
It
said.
says that in the transcript, yes.
Now, those same pills, you ultimately got some of those same pills from March, or similar pills in May of 2020, correct?
We got pills in May that reminded me of the same feeling. I don't know if they were the same pills. I don't know where they came from.
Right, okay. So you had a second experience with those pills, right? Or a similar feeling to those pills?
I had a similar experience, yes.
Right. And that was approximately a week before Mr. Floyd's passing?
Yes.
And by similar experience, do you recall telling the FBI that when you had that, you felt like you were going to die?
I don't remember saying that, but I did see it in the transcript.
And is that how you felt, like you were going to die?
I don't remember feeling that way, no. I didn't recall even saying that.
You and Floyd, Mr. Floyd, excuse me, I'm assuming like most couples had pet names for each other?
Yeah.
And what was his name for you? I mean, what were you saved, let me strike that. What were you saved in his phone as?
Mama.
Now, approximately a week prior to Mr. Floyd's death, you and Mr. Floyd again purchased pills from Mr. Maurice Hall, correct?
I believe so, I'm not sure.
Do you recall telling the FBI that you bought pills from Mr. Hall 1 week prior to Mr. Floyd's death?
Yes, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I didn't see anything happen.
Yesterday, when you met with prosecutors, did you tell them that you were in the car at a hotel
Yes,
when those pills were purchased?
yes,
And that you were on the phone with Mr. Floyd at that time?
yes,
And you heard a voice in the background?
yes.
And that was a voice you recognized to be from Mr. Hall?
I thought so, yeah.
And so between Mr. Floyd's hospitalization through March and the quarantining and all of that, March and April, Mr. Floyd had been clean during that time frame?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, if you need
No,
a
it's
minute.
okay.
I'm sorry. I want to just, again, time frame becomes important.
Yes.
After Mr. Floyd was hospitalized in March, you were quarantining together, spending a lot of time together in March, April,
Yes.
and May,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
And for the majority of that time, Mr. Floyd was clean, right?
yes,
And it was your belief that Mr. Floyd started using again about 2 weeks prior to his death, correct?
I noticed a change in his behavior, yes.
That's when you noticed the changes in his behavior. And you described some of those changes in his behavior in that time frame, right?
Yes,
Do you recall telling the FBI that there would be times that he would just be up and bouncing around, and then there would be times that he would be like unintelligible?
I don't recall that, but
Would you disagree if I said that in the transcript? That that's in
no,
the
I wouldn't
transcript?
disagree with that.
Were you aware that Mr. Floyd was with Mr. Hall on May 25th of 2020?
Only in the aftermath.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Yes, sir. Hello again, Ms. Ross.
Hi, Mayor.
Just a few follow-up questions for you. And maybe try to go in reverse order, but counsel was asking you about, whether you knew these pills were purchased from Mr. Hall,
Yes.
most recently in May.
Yes.
Talked to you about the hotel incident. And I just want you to clarify for the jury, you're not trying to mislead them or anything. What you're saying is you didn't personally see that sale.
No, I didn't. I just want to say what I saw.
Right. But you think that's probably where those pills came?
Yes.
You don't dispute that.
No, I don't.
Yeah. You just personally didn't see it.
Exactly.
And incidentally, what did he call his mother? What did he refer to her as?
He called her mama too, but it's just different the way he said it. It's kind of hard to describe.
So if you were to say to somebody, "Mama," that could mean his actual mother.
Yes.
Just also a name he called you.
Yes.
You were a mother too, right?
Yes.
Still are, I guess.
I
I
am,
shouldn't use
always.
past tense. Okay. And Mr. Nelson read for you some things you said before, but when he was asking you about the May pills and how they made you feel similar to the March pills.
Yes.
But I wanted you to tell the jury, in your own words today, why you say that they had a similar reaction for you. What was it about it? So in March, you said the pills kept you up all night and were kind of jittery.
Yes.
Is that the same reaction you
Same
had?
effect. It was a stimulant.
And when you took that pill in March, that seemed different.
Yes.
Obviously, you did not die from it.
No.
And did you see yourself, Mr. Floyd, taking one of those types of pills in March?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yep. So the pills that we were talking about you obtained in March
Yes.
that caused you to feel jittery and were different. Did you
Yes.
also see Mr. Floyd taking that kind of pill?
We did not take them together that time.
Did you think that he had some of them for himself?
Yes.
Obviously, he did not die in March.
No.
And the pill that gave you a similar experience in May, yes?
Yes.
Did he have some of those pills as well?
Yes.
Did he take some of those pills in May?
Yes.
He did not die before May 25th of 2020, correct?
Yes.
When you saw this change in his behavior prior to his death, in those 2 weeks, what did it lead you to think about, based on the 2.5, 3 years you had been with him, about how often he was using during those weeks?
I don't know.
Fair enough. You were asked about your interview with the FBI and asked about statements you made. Did the FBI, as you recall, ever ask you, how did you know those drugs were from Mr. Hall? When you told them that you thought they were from Mr. Hall?
I just told him I thought that.
Yeah. And the pills that we're talking about in May,
Yes.
I can't remember if you told me, did you see Mr. Floyd take any of those pills?
Yes, we took them together that time.
I'm sorry.
We did take them together that time.
And when he took those, obviously he didn't die, right?
No, he did not.
Did you see how they affected him?
He had a lot of energy.
And, but he was okay after using them?
Yes, he was playing football, hanging out, eating. Just a normal day.
Incidentally, did he play a lot of basketball?
He played basketball too, but football was his thing.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Anything further? Thank you, Ms. Ross. You are
Thank you.
And if you could make sure you take your
Thank
water
you.
with you? Yeah,
Yes.
if you could take your water, that'd be great. Members of the jury, I think this is a good time for our 20-minute mid-morning break. Members of the jury, I'm deeply sorry for the delay. Sometimes it's unavoidable. We appreciate your patience. Mr. Frank. Oh, Ms. Eldridge.
Calls Seth Braver.
Members of the jury, I'm deeply sorry for the delay. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Hold on. Counsel Chambers, briefly. All right, sorry for that. I'm going to have you stand up first.
Yep.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat. And if you could pull up to the microphone.
Yep.
And also, if you feel comfortable doing so, if you could remove your mask so that we can hear you better.
Okay.
And I'll leave mine on. And if we could begin by having you give your full name, spelling each of your names.
Seth Zachary Bravinder. First name is S-E-T-H. Middle name is Z-A-C-H-A-R-Y. Last name B-R-A-V-I-N-D-E-R.
Ms. Eldridge.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Bravinder. Am I saying that correctly?
You are.
Bravinder like lavender.
That's right.
I'll try to remember that, thank you. Where do you work, sir?
I'm a paramedic with Hennepin EMS.
How long have you been a paramedic with Hennepin County EMS?
I started in June of 2017.
And is your title paramedic?
Yes.
Okay. And has that been the case since you started, for that past 3 to 4 year period, you've been a paramedic by title?
Yeah.
And what's the training that goes into becoming a paramedic?
Prior to becoming a paramedic, you have to be an EMT already, which is a fairly short course, and then paramedic school was about 12 months long.
So, just to back you up, you said you have to be an EMT first. First, what's an EMT?
It's a lower level certification, a lot more limited in your scope and skills and what you can do. To give an example, my EMT course was like a 6-credit college course, what it was.
So you became an EMT in college?
No, I actually attended a course when I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And
So maybe let's start there, just in terms of what your training was, first in becoming an EMT, and then what you went through for that.
I attended an EMT course at Ridgewater my senior year of high school, Ridgewater College in Hutchinson, and I started on a volunteer ambulance out where I grew up, and
Was that while you were still in high school?
yeah, kind of pretty much as I was graduating, I started that.
So you said that there's an additional training path, an additional certification that's required to become a paramedic, is that right?
Yes.
So did you do that immediately afterward, or was there some time in between?
A little time in between. I started my paramedic course, would have been 2012 in May with HCMC, and then graduated in May of 2013.
So you went through training to become a paramedic at HCMC from 2012 to 2013, is that what you said?
Yes.
And what does that training entail to become a paramedic?
There's a lot of book work and a lot of hands-on skills training, clinical ride-alongs on an ambulance and different clinicals throughout the hospital.
Is that a year-long training?
Yeah, the whole course was a year.
And did you complete that successfully?
Yes.
Is there additional testing or certification requirements you have to go through to become a paramedic?
Yes.
Can you just describe that a little bit, please?
There's a written exam that we have to take to get our certification, and also a skills exam.
And did you complete that in 2013?
Yes.
And what about to maintain your license or status as a paramedic? Is there continuing credit or education you have to go through?
Yeah, we have to recertify every 2 years.
And are you up to date on all that certification?
I am.
So let's talk about your job sort of on a day-to-day basis. What do you do as a paramedic at Hennepin EMS?
I work with my partner on an ambulance. We respond to 911 calls, primarily medical emergencies, and provide care to our patients and transport them to the hospital.
What kinds of calls do you get? You said medical calls. Can those vary?
Yeah, and anything somebody would call 911 for.
Have some of those calls been life-threatening type emergencies?
Yes.
Have some of those calls been cardiac in nature,
Yes.
drug overdoses, things like that?
Yes.
Other types of things? What else would you respond to?
I guess mental health problems is included in that as well.
Okay. And what is your primary objective? What is your job when you go out to a scene as a paramedic?
To provide the best care I can for my patient and bring them safely to the hospital, the appropriate hospital they need to go to, and also advocate for them when I need to.
And when you say advocate, what do you mean by that?
Just making sure that their complaint or their problem is heard and communicated effectively to the receiving hospital as to why they're in the emergency room.
So when you're talking about advocating, are you, as part of your process as a paramedic, to hear and understand what the patient needs and is going through and pass on that information to the hospital?
Correct.
I'm going to direct your attention to May 25th, Memorial Day of last year. Were you on duty as a paramedic with Hennepin EMS on that date?
I was.
And was there a call that you responded to that evening in the area of 38th and Chicago?
Yes.
What was the nature of that call? How did you become aware of it?
We were dispatched. We have our screen where we get our calls on. We were dispatched, and our notes said we were going code 2 for someone with a mouth injury, and PD was on scene.
And when you say code 2, what does code 2 mean?
Routine, so no lights or sirens, normal driving.
So you said routine, no lights or sirens. Does that, what does that indicate to you in terms of the criticality or how serious that call might be?
It'd be pretty low criticality.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
no life-threatening indication if we're going code 2.
Okay. Where were you coming from when you heard about this code 2?
We were downtown at HCMC when we got it.
And did you get into your ambulance at that time, assuming you were responding to a code 2 call?
Yeah, I believe we were already in it, but
Okay.
yes.
Did the nature of that call or did the code level of that call change at some point?
It did about a minute and a half after we got it, I believe.
And what was the change?
We got a note saying code 3, so upgraded to lights and sirens, emergent response to the scene.
Okay. And at that point in time, did you have any more information about what the code 3 was?
No, not at that point.
So did you proceed as if, while you were en route, did you then upgrade in terms of your response to a code 3?
Yes.
Meaning, did you turn on the lights and sirens?
Yep.
Okay. And ultimately, did you arrive at that location, the 38th and Chicago location?
We did.
What did you see when you arrived on scene?
As we were pulling up to the scene, I saw multiple officers on the side of the road with our patient lying on the ground next to a squad car.
So, as you were pulling up, was that the position that you observed them in, meaning the officers on top of the patient next to the squad car?
Yes.
Could you tell at that point, as you were approaching, what the situation was, or what the condition of the patient was at that moment?
No, there were multiple officers on top of the patient when we pulled up at that point. We assumed, I assumed that there was potentially some struggle still because they were still on top of him, so
Okay.
that was my assumption when we pulled up.
So when you got to the scene, having no additional information,
Mhm.
seeing what you saw, that's what was going through your mind, is that right?
Yeah, yes.
So when you got to the scene, what'd you do next?
Parked the ambulance near the patient and got out. I walked to the back of the ambulance and my partner walked over to check on the patient.
And what did you see when you got out of the ambulance in terms of the patient's condition at that point?
I was standing a little ways away, so I couldn't get my partner would have had a more accurate description of his condition at that point, but from what I could see where I was at, I didn't see any breathing or movement or anything like that.
Did he appear to be unresponsive to you at that point in time?
From what I could tell, just standing from a distance, yes.
And was he in handcuffs?
Yes.
And we're describing the patient here. Was that patient later identified as George Floyd?
Yes.
So when you got out, your partner first approached, is that right? What were you doing at that initial point in time when you first got there?
As he went over to check on the patient, I was watching him to kind of get a cue on what we were going to do next, because we're still determining what the patient's condition was. So I was kind of waiting for him to go check on the patient and then know what to do next.
And at that point in time, when you were standing outside and your partner was approaching the patient, did you see a struggle of any kind going on, any movement, anything like that?
No.
Okay. So after your partner first approached, did you see what he was doing?
Yeah, he checked a pulse on his neck, a carotid pulse, and also looked like he checked the patient's pupils.
And did you discuss with your partner at that point next steps?
Yeah, he walked back towards me and I asked, is he in cardiac arrest? And he said, I think so.
So, you use the word cardiac arrest. What does that mean?
It's the term we're going to use for anybody that's not responsive, not breathing, and doesn't have a pulse currently.
Okay. So, essentially, does that mean that someone's heart is stopped?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there multiple things that can cause someone's heart to stop?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So when you say cardiac arrest, you're dealing with a patient whose heart is stopped. Is that an emergency?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you guys, knowing that you had an individual, George Floyd, in cardiac arrest, what did you decide to do?
My partner said, let's just get him in the truck. So I unloaded our stretcher to bring to the patient to place him in the ambulance.
And what was the reason for getting him into the truck?
Yeah. All of our equipment at that point was in the truck for resuscitating the patient. And we also didn't have Minneapolis Fire there yet, which they work with us on critical patients like that and help us a lot. So kind of for resource management, we needed to get in the truck. And then on top of that, there was also a crowd of people that appeared very upset on the sidewalk, and there was some yelling and stuff. And in my mind at least, we also want to get away from that, because running a cardiac arrest, it takes a lot of mental power and focus, and it can be taxing in our abilities, so we want to do that in the optimum environment we can. And since the ambulance is right there, we want to be in that controlled space to start resuscitation.
And was part of your reason to move, as you described, to give the best care you could so that you could be focused and away from whatever distractions were happening outside?
Yeah.
And you described hearing people, yelling or loud voices, but was there a physical fight or anything like that happening while you were there?
Not that I saw, no.
Okay. But you decided it would be best for the patient to move to a controlled setting and do your work on the ambulance, is that right?
Yeah, and all of our equipment was there, yeah.
And when you also mentioned fire, tell me why it's important to have fire assist in a situation like this.
There's just a lot of different skills we're going to be doing on a patient to try to resuscitate them, and we work closely with Minneapolis Fire. They're all EMTs, and they work with us on resuscitating a patient, doing things like breathing for them with like a BVM to help the patient breathe or do chest compressions, and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna break down some of the things you said. You used the term BVM.
Sorry, yeah, it's a thing you squeeze to breathe for your patient, essentially.
To assist with well, if someone's not breathing, is that a part of the process to try to resuscitate
Yes.
the respirations?
Yes.
All right, and we're using the word fire. I assume we're talking about the Minneapolis Fire Department, is that
Yes.
right? And in a lot of people's minds, the fire department fights fires, but you're describing they're also EMTs.
Yeah.
So is it typical for them to assist you with a patient who's in extreme distress or a cardiac arrest or something like that?
Yes, it is.
And you said that there's a lot of work to do. Maybe you could just explain a little bit for the jury why it takes so many people. You know, what's the process that you typically go through when you're trying to resuscitate a patient in that state?
We're doing things like chest compressions to hopefully circulate blood through their body, and you also need to control their airway. So there's some sort of airway has to be placed, and we have to breathe for them. We need to gain vascular access to like an IV or something, so we can give medications to try to resuscitate them, as well as a cardiac monitor, which is going to be monitoring a couple different things, but mainly their heart rhythm.
And to do all of those things at the same time, I assume you would need more than one person at least.
Yeah, it's just the more help you have, you can get it done quicker, and kind of running, once you have everything established, it can run much smoother, but that initial part is helpful, having resources.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just back you up to when you got onto the scene and sort of that first initial interaction you had. I'm going to play a clip from what's already been admitted as Exhibit 47, and we're just going to play a clip from 20:27:35 to 20:29:45. If we could do that now.
Not responsive right now, you guys might want to.
Right now. Get off of his neck! Are you serious?
Should we get in the car? Get another car just for crowd.
Let's get him on this. You're a baby, bro. How you gonna let him kick that like that? You gonna let him kick that man in front of you, bro? Huh? Like what? Bro, he's not even fucking moving right now, bro. He's not even fucking moving, You gonna just sit there with your head on his neck, bro? You a bro, you a real man for that, bro. He ain't got no,
You guys get out of the way.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Need this?
Let's go to 40th.
You want one of us to ride with?
Yeah.
Ride with?
Yeah, stick it.
I don't have my phone, so I'll be Baker.
Help it down.
What's that?
Help get belted down.
Yep. Where are we going?
We're just gonna be down the street.
Okay.
All right, so we can take that down. So just to kind of walk through that clip, the beginning of that clip, there was an individual with a hat bending down over the head of Mr. Floyd. Was that you or your partner?
That would have been my partner.
And what's your partner's name?
Derek
And what's his last name?
Smith.
And when you initially, at the beginning of that clip, when Mr. Smith was bending down over Mr. Floyd, was that the point in time when he was checking for a pulse and pupils that you described?
Yes.
And you may have been out of the frame for that, but what were you doing while that was going on?
I was at the back of the ambulance. Yeah, I was standing near the back of the ambulance.
And while your partner was checking for a pulse and checking pupils, were the officers still on top of George Floyd while that process was going on?
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you a different clip with a different view of within that time frame. We're going to publish what's already been admitted as Exhibit 15, but just a short clip from that, which will be from 6:45:28 to 8:10:29. If we could publish that, please.
Bro, he's not even fucking moving. Get off of his fucking neck, bro. Get off of his neck.
Still on him, bro.
Yes, look at that, bro.
on the street.
Are you serious? Bro, are you serious? And you gonna keep your thing on your neck? Yeah, I bet you. Bro, I barely touch me like that, dude. I swear I'll slap the fuck out of both of y'all.
I didn't want to call the ambulance.
Bro, he's just gonna let him keep his hand on his neck, bro? You're a bitch, bro. Tao, you gonna let him keep that like that? You gonna let him kill that man in front of you, bro? Huh?
Like what?
Bro, he's not even fucking moving right now, bro. He's not even fucking moving.
This is what it is. We gotta deal with this shit.
Bro,
You're not gonna help us, bro.
Right, he black, they don't care.
987 years
If it ain't they people, they don't care, bro.
You gonna just sit there with your knee on his neck, bro? You a real man for that, bro. He ain't handcuffed,
Look at him.
bro.
Just
You
sitting
a
there.
real man, bro.
Listen, I'm
You
a
real man, bro. I trained with these
Minneapolis.
bro.
The fact that you guys aren't checking his pulse and doing compressions if he needs that, you guys are on
Oh
another
my
level.
God, bro.
And then he just gonna
Okay.
pull him
They
up
just
there like
dragging
that,
him
bro.
like, come
Yeah,
on
and
now.
I have your name tag, bitch.
That's not very professional.
It don't matter. So what? Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, folks.
We can take that down. So at the end of that clip, there's another individual without a hat toward the head of Mr. Floyd. Was that you in that position at the end?
Yes.
And you were seen bending down over Mr. Floyd, and there was a gesture made with your hand. What were you attempting to do at that point in time?
Just have the officer move.
And again, did you have a conversation at that point, or what was the intent behind that?
I don't recall if I said anything or not. I'm not sure.
And why did you need the officer to move?
So we could move the patient.
And then were you continuing to assist on the head side of Mr. Floyd while the patient, Mr. Floyd, was moved?
Yes.
I believe there was a clip in there where you were holding or had your hands near his head. What were you trying to do there?
I was just trying to keep it from slamming down on the pavement as we moved him over.
And how would you describe sort of the way that Mr. Floyd was moved to the stretcher?
What do you mean by that?
That wasn't a very good question. You were trying to keep his head from slamming into the pavement. Why is that?
Because he was, I guess limp would be the best description. He wasn't, he was unresponsive and wasn't holding his head up or anything like that.
And were you trying to protect his head?
Yeah.
At that point, okay. All right, so what happened next? We saw the initial clip where Mr. Floyd was loaded up onto the ambulance. Did an officer come with you?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that?
To do chest compressions for us.
And was part of that the reason you described in terms of having you need more people to work on a patient in this case, in this situation?
Yes.
So what did you do at that point in time?
I think you can see it in the video. My partner and I had a brief discussion that we were going to move a couple blocks away.
And was
So-
that for the reasons you described earlier?
Yes.
Did you ultimately go to another location?
Yeah, I went to the front and drove the ambulance and went to 36th and Park.
Okay, and I am going to show just you, not the jury, an exhibit that has not yet been admitted, but if we could just put exhibit 73 on the screen, please. All right, so you should see in front of you a map. Does that appear in front of you?
Yes.
And does that show a map of the area where you were on May 25th, 2020?
Yes.
And does it show both Cup Foods and sort of where the ambulance ultimately parked for a period of time to render assistance?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd offer Exhibit 73,
No objection, Your Honor.
73 is received.
and we'd ask permission to publish that to the jury. All right, so now that's up on the screen. If you could just describe where you went and how you got there.
And also status, if you want to draw on the screen.
We would have gone down 38th and then up Park here.
And if you could just describe, you had talked about the reason to move, but why did you need to stop?
Like I said, it's resource intensive for doing a resuscitation, so I needed to be in back to work with my partner in resuscitating Mr. Floyd.
And at that point, it was just the two of you plus this officer, is that right?
Yes.
And did your partner need your assistance to perform those resuscitative efforts?
Yes.
So what, did you ultimately park and then go back to assist in the back of the ambulance?
I did.
And what was going on when you got back there?
I can't remember everything that was going on at that exact moment when I walked into the ambulance, but
Let's start with this. I mean, had his condition, had Mr. Floyd's condition improved? Had he gotten better?
no. I remember walking in and the cardiac monitor was showing asystole, so
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there because that's a word that not a lot of people know. What is asystole?
flatline, so it's monitoring your cardiac electrical activity. I guess like flatline is the most layperson-friendly term, but basically tells us your heart isn't really doing anything at that moment.
So there's essentially no activity in the heart.
Yes.
So when you came back and saw that the monitor showed asystole, well, what's the significance of that just in terms of a patient's condition?
It's not a good sign for a successful resuscitation. But.
And is that, can you explain why? Why is that?
Basically just because your heart isn't doing anything at that moment. There's not, it's not pumping blood, so it's not a good sign for a good outcome.
So what did you do noticing that he was in asystole, and obviously your partner had been working on him while you were driving as well, is that right?
Yes.
So how did you join in those efforts?
A couple different things. Worked on getting him placed on a Lucas device, which does chest compressions.
Okay, can we just stop for a sec so you can explain what the Lucas device is and how it works?
Yeah, it's a device you place over their chest that has a plunger that does compressions for us to do chest compressions to circulate blood.
And I'm going to put on the screen what's already been admitted as Exhibit 62. All right. So Exhibit 62 is on the screen. Can you just describe what's shown here and what you're doing?
There's a backboard that goes behind the patient, and it has to like click in and connect to it in order to work. So I was hooking it up.
And is that part of the Lucas device?
Yes.
So when you say backboard, maybe you could use your stylus or your finger to just sort of circle or point to what you're talking about.
That little yellow, it's a piece there, it's a board that goes all the way across their back.
Okay. And to set it up, it has to be positioned in a certain way, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So you were assisting with getting that set up, and is the other hands here the other officer who was on the ambulance with you at that time?
Yes.
And then the other person behind you, is that your partner, Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll move to Exhibit 63, which has already been admitted. Okay, so once you get the Lucas device going, I mean, just describe what does it do? How does it assist you in this process? In providing compressions, that sort of thing.
Yeah. How does it assist us? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, is it done sort of as a way to replace or make it so that hand CPR, that, the compressions that people might think of when they think of CPR, does it sort of do that for you instead?
Yeah, it does that for us instead, yes.
And can you just sort of describe how that works? Maybe not the mechanics of the machine, but just what you see happening when you see somebody on a Lucas device.
That center plunger right on his chest that moves up and down and does the compressions.
Okay. So does it also free up your hands to do other things while there are compressions being given by the machine?
Yes.
Okay, so after the Lucas device is set up, and before we actually move on, I mean, did you notice injuries on Mr. Floyd as well while you were working on him?
I wasn't really examining him at the time for injuries, but I noticed some blood near his mouth.
Okay. But were those your primary concern at that point?
No.
And why is that?
It'd be just on glance, it looked like a minor injury, and it's not really a concern because we're worried about resuscitating him.
Because at that point he didn't have a heartbeat, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now in this picture in 63, which one of these individuals are you? Is you?
I'm the one near the patient's head.
Okay, so what are you doing there?
Placing an eye gel airway device.
And what is an eye gel airway device, and what does it do?
I place that in their mouth. It goes near the glottic opening to their trachea. Means you can use that BVM, that bag I was talking about, to breathe for them and ventilate them.
And why is that important to what you're doing?
It's a part of securing the airway to make sure liquid or fluid or vomit or anything doesn't end up in their lungs, and also helps us deliver oxygen and ventilate effectively.
And at this point, I assume that you're doing this because he's not breathing.
Yes.
Okay. Meaning no respirations are happening for him, so you're trying to use your equipment to do that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So did you ultimately, well, let's move to Exhibit 64, which has already been admitted. Yes. So were you ultimately able to place that airway?
Yes.
And is this, in Exhibit 64, is that part of the process that you're working on with respect to Mr. Floyd's head and face, mouth area?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And your partner, what's he doing at that point in time?
He is working on getting IV access.
And you talked a little bit about IV access before, but what was the purpose of getting IV access in this, for his treatment, for Mr. Floyd's treatment?
To administer medications.
And what were the medications that were administered to Mr. Floyd?
All of them that we would have given.
Well, I don't know if it's a long list, but what was the primary purpose? What were you trying to give him?
Yeah, epinephrine is like a first line medication when somebody's in cardiac arrest.
Okay, so did you give him epinephrine?
Yes.
And why is that when you say it's a first line for cardiac arrest? What does it do?
Helps to restart their heart.
Okay. All right, so getting back to the treatment. We were talking about epinephrine and why you give that. And you said that's something, can you repeat what you said just so I can recall?
It's, at that point, it's something we're going to give to hopefully help their heart start working again.
And is that one of the things that you do, sort of standard practice with a cardiac arrest?
Yes.
And do you also give sodium bicarbonate as one of your treatment options for a cardiac arrest as well?
Yes.
And is that, does that provide assistance if there's been downtime or some extended period of time without a pulse? I can
Sustain.
rephrase.
Why don't we rephrase?
Why do you give sodium bicarbonate?
Based on my training that I was given, it's to help with acidosis.
And what is acidosis?
Essentially, your pH would be low. And there's many different things that could be causing that, but
Well, why is it bad to have low pH?
I won't dive into the details on it because I'm not an expert, but based on my training, it needs to be, acidosis is bad and we need to work on correcting that.
And is acidosis something that can be caused by things like hypoxia?
Sustain.
All right, so when you're talking about acidosis, what are you trying to treat in the moment? What are you dealing with?
I'm giving sodium bicarb to help to optimize the patient's condition for successful resuscitation.
And in terms of your work as a paramedic, when you come upon somebody whose heart has stopped or who's in cardiac arrest, is giving medications like epinephrine and sodium bicarbonate part of that sort of standard treatment plan for you?
Yes.
Okay. I believe we just took down Exhibit 64. We're going to just put up Exhibit 65. Okay. Maybe if we could just go back to 64 just for a second because I'm not quite sure which exhibit I had on there. All right, I believe we had 64 up. Let's move to 65. Okay, and again, could you just describe what you're doing at this moment in Exhibit 65?
At that moment, I am working on securing the iGel airway device. In my right hand there, that blue thing is a tube holder, we call it, to put in the patient's mouth to keep the airway device in place.
Okay. And while you're working on the airway, is your partner working on the IV?
Yes.
And was that for purposes of administering the medications we just discussed?
Yes.
Okay. We can take that down. Thank you. At some point, did the Minneapolis Fire Department arrive to your location to assist?
Yes.
And what was Mr. Floyd's condition at that point in time when they arrived?
We're the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
It hadn't improved, is that right?
No.
Okay. What did you do when the fire, how many firefighters came?
I don't know that I can remember for sure how many were in the back. I believe it was 2, but I'm not 100% sure.
And did your role change at that point when the firefighters arrived?
Yeah.
What did you do at that point?
I believe at that point I started working on working on IV access.
And was there sort of a switch of jobs when the firefighters came in?
Yeah, at some point the officer stepped out and I kind of moved down to near where he was sitting.
Okay. So when the firefighters came, did you feel like there were enough people to do what you needed to do for Mr. Floyd in order to get him where he needed to go?
Yeah.
So you said the officer stepped off. Did one of the firefighters take over with respect to what you were working on in the airway?
Yeah, the airway was established, so they're working on squeezing that bag to breathe for the patient.
And maybe you could just describe how that works. Does someone need to squeeze the bag in order to provide, well, how does it work?
Yeah, it's just a bag that you're going to squeeze roughly every 5 to 6 seconds to breathe for the patient.
And so after you had set it up and the firefighters arrived, did one of them take over that part?
From what I remember, yes.
And then you said you moved down and assisted with the IV. Can you just describe that?
I just worked on trying to get IV access.
And was there some difficulty with that?
A little bit, I believe. I believe we had IO access at some point, but I don't know when that was done.
And what is IO access?
It's a needle that drills into your bone in your leg. It's another way of giving medications.
And why would you need to have that kind of access?
Same reason, to give medications to try to resuscitate them.
And if maybe you could describe why you might initially go from one location to moving to IO access.
IO is often done if you're having difficulty with IV access, and it's common to do in a cardiac arrest.
And IO stands for?
Intraosseous.
Intraosseous, and IV is?
Intravascular.
Okay. So at some point, did that get established, an IO line?
Yeah.
And was that the way that the medications were administered?
I would need to look at the documentation to be for sure on that, but I believe that's how they were administered.
But in any event, do you recall that he was administered those medications?
Yes.
What did you do after that?
We continued working on resuscitating him for a period of time, and then I kind of had everything done we wanted to, and then I went to the front and started driving to the hospital.
Maybe you could just explain, was there something that you needed to accomplish before you felt comfortable moving again, driving the vehicle elsewhere?
Yeah, I think there's a standard set of, we call it like ACLS guidelines from the American Heart Association. It's how we're trained and how we do provide care in a resuscitation like this. We kind of had all those things in place.
So what are those things? Just generally, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, just the highlights, I'll say chest compressions, breathing for them, and doing medications that we need to give them.
And is it your objective to have those things in place before you transport to the hospital?
Yeah, it's time sensitive to have them done, so we need to get them done right away.
And maybe you could explain what's time sensitive about these resuscitative processes?
Just the longer the patient goes, without receiving resuscitation, the lower likelihood they will be resuscitated.
And in your training as a paramedic, when you're talking about time sensitivity, when it comes to resuscitative efforts or things like CPR, anything like that, what are you trained to do in terms of timing?
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah, that was not a good question. Is it important to start resuscitative efforts immediately after someone does not find a pulse?
As soon as we can, yes.
Okay. And why is that?
Primary goal, I would say, is circulating blood through chest compressions. Yeah.
And I think you previously testified, if there's a delay, does that lessen your likelihood of success?
Rephrase.
What happens if there's a delay?
Based on my understanding, that's not good for his outcome.
Okay. So ultimately, after you had the things in place that you just described, did you then transport Mr. Floyd to the hospital?
Yes.
And were you the driver?
Yes.
I'm going to put on the screen just for you an exhibit that has not yet been admitted as Exhibit 67. Can you see that?
Yes.
And does this image fairly and accurately show you and your partner and the firefighters unloading Mr. Floyd at the hospital?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd offer Exhibit 67.
Any objection?
No objection,
67 is received.
Permission, thank you. And once you got to the hospital, did you assist in moving Mr. Floyd, transferring him inside to the hospital with the others?
Yes.
And we can take that down, thank you. And what happened at that point in time, once you were bringing him to the hospital?
There's a room we call the stay room for critical patients. We bring him into the ER. Brought him in there and moved him over to the hospital bed.
And what was his condition? You had talked about asystole at the beginning of your interaction with him. Once you had worked on him and then brought him to the hospital, what was his condition at that point in time?
I don't know what his exact cardiac rhythm was at that point, but his overall condition did not appear to change.
And had you noted any changes? Was there a period of time of pulseless electrical activity?
At some point, yes.
And would that have been at some point after the asystole?
Yeah, I can't tell you exactly what point it was, but...
Sure. So just to, so we know what we're talking about here, what is pulseless electrical activity?
It's essentially it's picking up an organized rhythm, so electricity over your heart, but we don't feel a pulse anywhere. So it's, on our purposes, it's not perfusing, so we'd continue chest compressions.
Okay, so you said not perfusing. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we don't feel a pulse, so there's no blood being pumped through the body to your organs.
And if you, well, as someone is being worked on or compressions are being given, can things change in terms of the heart rhythm in your experience as a paramedic?
Yes.
But if you have pulseless electrical activity, what does that mean in terms of the change?
It's, as far as how we're going to be resuscitating him, it's the same as asystole, so.
So your course of action remain the same?
Yeah, asystole and PEA is like the same protocol, I guess you'd call it, for how we resuscitate.
And even though there was when he first arrived, he was in asystole. At some point later, there was PEA. At any point, did he regenerate a pulse or come to? Was he revived?
No.
And ultimately at the hospital, was there a report given to staff at the hospital about his condition and all of those things that you did?
Yes, my partner would have given that report to the hospital.
And were you assisting with the other needs as well? Were you part of that process?
Yeah.
And what did you do after Mr. Floyd was handed off to medical staff at the hospital?
I would have just been bringing equipment back to our truck and putting it back together.
Again, over the course of your interaction with him and treatment of Mr. Floyd, did you notice any positive change, any revival?
No.
Nothing further.
Mr. Nelson.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, we're afternoon. Sorry, I had to check the time.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Just have a few follow-up questions for you. I want to just understand sort of the very briefly the progression of your education and kind of the differences. Is CPR training then different than being an EMT?
You're talking about like a CPR certification?
Yes.
Yes. It's a part of it, but yes, different.
So the basic kind of resuscitative training someone could receive would be a CPR certification?
Yes.
And then kind of a higher level of education would be an EMT, right?
Yeah.
And then a higher level than an EMT is a paramedic?
Yes.
And then up through, all the way up to doctors and stuff, right?
Sure.
Okay. And you are a paramedic, you said you've been about 4 years now?
With Hennepin EMS, I was a paramedic elsewhere prior.
Okay. How many years total as a paramedic?
I started as a paramedic in 2013.
Okay. And so in Hennepin, for Hennepin County, do you frequently service calls in the city of Minneapolis?
Yes.
Do you frequently call or service calls where police officers are involved?
Yes.
Do you, have you arrived at a scene where you've seen officers on top of a person before?
Yes.
Have you been called to other calls where a suspect has struggled with the police?
Yes.
What does it mean to stage as an EMS?
What does it mean to stage?
Mm-hmm.
If you're referring to like staging for safety purposes?
Correct.
Yeah, if a scene is not safe, we will stage in the area and wait for police to give us what's a code for, we call it, that it's safe to come in.
And just for clarification purposes, you were not asked to stage in this event, right? Because of the crowd?
No, we were not.
All right. But generally speaking, it's common for police to arrive at a scene, deal with whatever the circumstances are, and then EMS is called in after police has dealt with the danger of the situation, right?
Can you say that question again?
Sure. It's kind of long-winded. Police will frequently go to a call before EMS to deal with some dangerous situation.
Yeah, it completely depends on the type of call.
Right. As a course of being a paramedic, have you responded to other overdose calls or overdose calls?
I have responded to overdose calls, yes.
And is it Hennepin EMS policy to have police respond to those calls with you?
Yes, they do usually. I can't reference a policy, but
Okay.
in my practice, or my experience, they do respond with us.
And is that because when people are sometimes resuscitated or treated for an overdose, they become aggressive and violent?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled, if you know.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. Is it the practice to have police respond to those calls because when people are resuscitated or revived from an overdose, they can become violent or aggressive?
It can happen sometimes, yes.
Have you personally seen that happen?
Yes.
So turning your attention to May 25th of 2020, you were the driver of the ambulance that day, correct? Or for this call, I should say.
For that call, yes.
And after all of this, you would agree that you have met with law enforcement officers during the course of the investigation of this case?
Yes.
And you have made statements, and you know those statements were recorded?
Yes.
And do you know that, have you had an opportunity to review a transcript of your statement prior to today's testimony?
Yes.
Okay. You've also met with the prosecution team a couple of times, is that correct?
Yes.
In preparation, including as late as last night, correct?
Yes.
And you kind of just talked about what your testimony was going to be today, right?
Yes.
All right. So on May 25th, when you arrived, you testified that you saw sort of a crowd standing out around the police officers, correct?
Yes.
And when you arrived, the ambulance actually pulled ahead of where Mr. Floyd and the officers were located, correct?
Yes.
And that would be for ease of loading him into the ambulance, correct?
Yes.
So that basically the back of the ambulance would be in line with Mr. Floyd's and Mr. Floyd to kind of get him into the ambulance, right?
Yes.
All right. And so when you got out of the ambulance and you walked back towards the office, you would have had to walk back towards the officers, correct?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, yes. I don't know which side of the ambulance I walked back on, but yes.
Well, if you're the driver, you would have gotten out of the driver's side and walked along the driver's side of the car.
Doesn't necessarily mean I walked down that side, back to the back of the ambulance, but
Okay. You may have gone around the front.
I may have gone around. Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall describing to agents the position that you saw Mr. Floyd in at that time?
I can't. Yes, I remember talking about it.
You remember talking about it?
Yes.
And what did you tell the agents about how you observed Mr. Floyd's body position to be?
I can't remember exact details. I remember he was on the ground and he had handcuffs in place.
Okay. Do you remember saying that he was primarily on his left side?
I think I did say that, yes.
Okay. And is that what you recall today?
He wasn't. I don't remember if I clarified that at all. To me, it seemed like he was leaned to his left. Is kind of I think what I tried to say.
So he was kind of leaned to his left, and I think you said, and he was sort of rolled forward onto his stomach a little bit.
Yes.
Would you dispute me if I say that's what the transcript refers to?
No.
Okay. All right. And so you and your partner decided to do what's called a load and go, right?
To get into the ambulance, yes.
Right. And to leave.
To move, we didn't leave. We moved to a different location, yes.
Right. And that was out of concern because of the people that were around, right? And the general atmosphere at the scene at that point.
Yes, that was a part of it, yes.
In terms, I forgot to ask you one question, generally speaking, in terms of your response to calls where police are struggling with an individual, does Hennepin EMS carry ketamine with them?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of the ketamine?
It has multiple purposes.
Is one of them to sedate someone if they are struggling?
It is able to use for that, yes.
Obviously that you didn't apply ketamine in this case.
No.
So you loaded Mr. Floyd into the ambulance, correct?
Yes.
And one of the 4 Minneapolis police officers that you observed at that scene got into the ambulance with you, correct?
Yes.
It was one of the same officers that you observed on Mr. Floyd at the time, correct?
I wasn't keeping track of who was who at that point. I believe he was near the Mr. Floyd.
So the photos that we looked at, right?
Yeah.
Those came from what appeared to be a body-worn camera, correct?
Yes.
There's no camera in the care compartment of an Hennepin County EMS ambulance, is there?
No.
And you do not wear body cameras as paramedics, correct?
No.
So those photographs came from an officer's body-worn camera.
Yes.
And so that officer initially started assisting with chest compressions of Mr. Floyd?
Yes. I wasn't in back when that would have happened, but
Your partner was?
yes.
And he would probably be the person to ask about that?
Yeah, I would have been, you can see in the footage we watched, but I was there for a brief period and then went to the front.
All right. So you've seen the body-worn camera footage from inside of the ambulance?
I've seen a good amount of it. I don't know if I've seen all of it, but
Okay.
I've seen a good amount of it.
You described the Lucas device putting on the, or that, you described that Lucas device that does the chest compressions, right?
Yes.
It was your partner that was putting that on with that police officer, correct?
No, I was putting that on with the police officer.
Okay. So you and he, so you were in the ambulance when the officer was performing chest compressions?
Yes, after I pulled over on 36th and Park and got in the back, he would have been doing chest compressions.
So the first thing you did was load Mr. Floyd in to the vehicle. You drive to 36th and Park, right?
Yes.
And while you drove that distance to 36th and Park, the officer was in the back with your partner performing chest compressions?
I would assume I wasn't in back.
Right. And then, but when you got into the back to assist your partner, that's what you observed was the officer performing chest compressions?
What I remember, that he was doing them at that time, yeah.
And then you and he actually attached the Lucas device to Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
And it was a little difficult to get on?
Yes.
There was a latch problem or something?
Yes.
And then at some point you testified that you did, I think you call it an iGel aerate device?
Airway.
Airway
Airway.
device, I'm sorry. You inserted that into Mr. Floyd's mouth, right?
Yes.
Now, does that actually go down into the throat? Is it like a tube that goes through the throat?
Partially, yeah.
Okay. Any difficulty getting that in?
No, there wasn't difficulty getting it. It went in fine. The first one I grabbed was too small.
Okay. So there are different sizes?
Yeah, there's different sizes. So I had to, initially I put that one in, and then had to pull it out and put a larger one in.
Okay. So there was nothing constricting or obstructing your ability to insert that device into his mouth and throat?
No.
And the medications that you described, the sodium bicarb and the epinephrine were applied, and some other medications as well?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the report to know exactly what meds were given, but yes, those meds were given.
Right. And once you kind of got those initial 3 things you described done, at some point fire came out as well, right?
Correct.
And let me ask you one question that I forgot to ask you about the initial call. The initial call you said was code 2, correct? And it got upgraded to code 3, meaning lights and sirens.
Correct.
And that was about a minute and a half after the initial call, agreed?
Based on what I looked at the times, from what I've seen after, it looked like it was about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the time from when it got upgraded until you arrived on scene, would you agree that was about 6.5 minutes, something like that?
I believe it was close to that, yes.
Okay. And then it was was it you who added fire to the call, or was it your partner?
I believe, I can't say for sure who said it first. I believe my partner said it first over the radio.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's when fire gets dispatched, and they ultimately, you understand, went to Cup Foods first?
I heard that afterwards, yes.
Okay. You didn't know it at the time?
No, when as we were moving to 36th and Park, I went over the radio and told our dispatch that we were going to be moving to have fire meet us there.
Okay. And then the information you had as you were initially responding was that there was a mouth injury, correct?
Yes.
And that there was information that the male may be intoxicated or impaired?
Yeah, there were some notes about, I can't remember the exact wording, but there's something about substance use, or I can't remember if it said narcotic or substance use concern. And then there was a note saying he was on top of a vehicle.
Okay, so you remember seeing that in the computer-aided dispatch?
Yeah, I saw that on the way to the call. Or sorry, that would have been my partner that would have seen that.
Okay. And then there was also some information that police had Mr. Floyd restrained on the ground, right?
In our CAD notes.
Okay.
I'm
you were
not
driving.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There was a note that popped up right as we were arriving, so I'm not sure if you're referring to that, but I don't recall if it said he was restrained or not.
Okay. Fair enough. I have no further questions.
Selfridge.
Mr. Bravinder, you were asked some questions about responding to scenes where someone might be violent or struggling, things of that nature. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
And when you got to the scene, was Mr. Floyd struggling or violent in any way?
No.
Did it appear to you that he was already dead when you got there?
No.
I wouldn't know when I pulled up on scene, but I did not see him, as I testified earlier. When I was standing at the back of the ambulance, I didn't see him moving or breathing.
Right. So from what you saw, did you see someone who appeared to be unresponsive?
Yes.
And in cardiac arrest?
As we learned, yes.
And you were asked some questions about ketamine, things of that nature. Is ketamine a drug that's given to people that are alive and struggling?
Sometimes, yes.
And is that a treatment option for you for somebody who is exhibiting those behaviors that you were asked about? Violence and struggling, that sort of thing. Alive and moving, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, it's for profound agitation, so somebody that's really violent.
You would not give that to somebody who is dead or in cardiac arrest or unresponsive, is that right?
Correct, we would not give it, no.
And you're asked about responding to overdoses as part of your job. When you respond to overdose deaths or an opioid overdose death, what do you look for in terms of someone's pupils?
We look at them to see if they're small. Their pupils are really small.
When you say small, is that like pinpoint, constricted pupils?
Pinpoint, yes.
And do you know what Mr. Floyd's pupils looked like when you and your partner arrived on scene?
I don't recall looking at them myself. I know like I said, my partner checked them initially.
And did you receive a report about that? From him?
Yeah, he did say something. I'd be kind of guessing, I believe, I think I know what he said, but.
All right, we'll move on from that. You were asked some questions about the crowd and whether that was the reason to move Mr. Floyd to another location. Do you remember those questions on cross-examination?
Yes.
You testified on direct examination, but there are a number of things that you consider when you determine whether to move someone, is that right?
Yes.
So is having a crowd one of those things that you might consider?
It's, one thing to consider, yes.
But you also talked about how you needed a significant amount of equipment that was in your ambulance, is that right?
Rephrase.
What are the other things that you consider in terms of why to move somebody to another location?
Overruled.
You can answer.
Sorry, can you ask that last part just one more time?
What are the things that you take into account when deciding whether to move a patient to another location?
Yeah, so in that case, moving into the ambulance equipment was a consideration of that, and being in a good environment to resuscitate.
And do you also, I believe you may have testified about this, but does it require focus on your part?
Yes.
And are all of those things part of your consideration on a scene about what to do?
Yes.
If I may have just a moment. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Bravinder, have you, in your experience, ever responded to a scene of someone under the influence of methamphetamines?
Yes.
Do methamphetamines cause that same restriction in the eyeballs?
My understanding, no.
And in fact dilates them, correct?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Right. Thank you. You may step down.
Thanks.
Members of the jury, we'll take our lunch recess. We'll try and reconvene at 1:30. Thank you.